The slap came so fast I didn't have time to react. The sound of skin hitting skin echoed through the cavernous Royal Oaks ballroom like a gunshot. My glasses went flying, skittering across the polished marble floor before shattering near the feet of a waiter, holding a tray of champagne. 130 guests fell instantly silent. The band stopped playing. The laughter died. All eyes were on me. My cheek burned with a stinging heat, but the pain in my chest was far worse. Standing before me, her chest heaving with rage, was Juliet, my new daughter-in-law. Her pristine white wedding dress, which had cost $6,000, seemed to mock the simplicity of my own navy blue dress, a dress she had called mothball chic just hours earlier. "That's what you get for being so selfish," Juliet screamed, her face twisted into a mask of pure entitlement. "A woman your age doesn't need a 3-bedroom apartment. You are ruining our future because you're too stubborn to move into a home." I looked at my son, Ethan, my beautiful boy, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the boy I had nursed through chicken pox. He stood next to his new wife, looking down at his Italian leather shoes. He didn't step forward. He didn't defend me. He didn't even hand me my broken glasses. He just stood there, letting his wife assault his mother in front of everyone we knew. "Ethan," I whispered, my voice trembling. He looked up, his eyes cold. "Mom, just go. You're embarrassing us. We'll talk about the apartment keys on Monday when you're being rational." Rational. The word hung in the air. I bent down slowly, my knees cracking audibly in the silence, and picked up the twisted frame of my glasses. I didn't look at them again. I turned and walked toward the heavy double doors. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea, but their whispers crashed over me. "Poor Aurora," I heard Mrs. Gable whisper. "She's probably senile. That's why they want the apartment." "She works at that little flower shop," another voice muttered. "She probably can't afford the maintenance anyway." I pushed through the doors into the cool night air. The valet looked at me with pity. "Car, ma'am?" "No, thank you, Thomas," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I have a phone call to make first." I walked to the edge of the dark parking lot, away from the lights and the judgment. I took a deep breath of the cold air. I wasn't crying. I had cried enough over the last 2 years. I had cried when Ethan forgot my birthday. I had cried when Juliet threw out my husband's favorite armchair because it didn't match the aesthetic. I had cried when they asked me to sit at the back table at the rehearsal dinner so I wouldn't be in the photos. But I was done crying. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had saved for emergencies. "Carlos," I said when the line clicked open. "Aurora?" His voice was thick with sleep. "It's 9 p.m. Is everything okay?" "No, Carlos. Everything is over. I need you to initiate Protocol Red." There was a long silence on the other end. "Protocol Red? Aurora, that's the nuclear option. That means canceling everything. The loans, the leases, the trust. Are you sure?" I touched my burning cheek. I thought of my son's cold eyes. "I am sure," I said. "Bring the documents to the Royal Oaks ballroom. And Carlos, bring the eviction notices too." While I waited for Carlos, I sat on a concrete bench and let the memories wash over me. To understand why tonight happened, you have to understand who I really am. To Ethan and Juliet and to most of this town, I am Aurora Hughes, the quiet widow who works part-time arranging bouquets at Petal and Stem and drives a dented 2014 Honda Accord. They think I live on a meager pension and Social Security. They are wrong. My husband Robert didn't just leave me a pension. Robert was a visionary. 30 years ago, we started buying distressed real estate in the city center. We bought old warehouses, run-down apartment blocks, and empty lots. We lived frugally, rice and beans, secondhand clothes, so we could put every penny back into the business. By the time Robert passed away 5 years ago, Hughes Holdings owned 3 city blocks, 2 shopping centers, and the very building where Petal and Stem is located. We kept it a secret. We didn't want Ethan to grow up entitled. We wanted him to value hard work. We paid for his college, yes, but we made him work summers. We thought we had raised a good man, but then he met Juliet. Juliet was beautiful, ambitious, and hungry. Not hungry for food, but for status. She met Ethan 2 years ago, and almost immediately the changes started. "Mom," Ethan had said 6 months into the relationship, "I need a better car. Clients judge me for driving a Ford." I had quietly paid off the lease on a BMW for him, funneling the money through a work bonus program I set up secretly with his boss, an old friend of Robert's. Then it was the apartment. "Mom, Juliet can't live in a studio. We need space." I had instructed Carlos to buy the luxury condo building on Skyline Drive through a shell company. I approved their application and set their rent at $500 a month, a fraction of the market rate of $4,000. They thought they got lucky. They didn't know I was subsidizing their entire life by $3,500 a month. And then, the wedding. Juliet wanted the Royal Oaks. She wanted imported orchids. She wanted a 10-piece band. The bill came to $53,000. Ethan came to me, pale and sweating. "Mom, we can't afford it." "I'll see what I can do," I had told him. I went to the bank and guaranteed the loan with my personal assets. I did it all out of love. I thought if I helped them, they would appreciate it. I thought they would include me. But the more I gave, the more they despised me. 3 months ago, the harassment began. "Your apartment is too big for one person," Juliet started saying over Sunday dinner. "It has 3 bedrooms, Aurora. You're just one old lady. Ethan and I are starting a family. We deserve that space." My apartment wasn't just an apartment. It was the penthouse of the building I owned. It was where Robert and I had spent our last years. It was filled with his books, his smell, our memories. "I'm not moving, Juliet," I had said gently. "You're being selfish," she had snapped. Ethan had just sighed. "Mom, maybe you should look at Sunset Meadows. It's a nice facility. Assisted living." Assisted living? I am 68. I run a corporation. I hike on weekends. But to them, I was just an obstacle waiting to be removed. Tonight was the breaking point. Before the reception, Juliet cornered me in the bridal suite. "Give me the keys," she demanded, holding out her hand. "Tonight. We want to move in when we get back from the honeymoon. You can stay at a motel until we find you a nursing home." "No," I said. And that's when she slapped me. And that's when my son watched and did nothing. Headlights swept across the parking lot, pulling me from my memories. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up, Carlos's car. He stepped out, looking impeccable in his gray suit, holding a thick red leather briefcase. "Mrs. Hughes," he said, walking over to me. He looked at my face and winced. "That looks painful?" "It's clarity, Carlos," I said, standing up. "It's the most clarity I've had in years. Do you have everything?" "I have the lease revocation. I have the loan recall notices. I have the wedding invoice cancellation. And I have the deed to the flower shop proving ownership." "Good," I said, smoothing down my navy dress. "Let's go wish the happy couple congratulations." Walking back into that ballroom was like walking into a lion's den, but this time, I was the lion. The party had restarted, but the atmosphere was tense. People were whispering. When the doors opened and I walked in, flanked by Carlos, the music faltered again. Juliet was at the head table, laughing loudly, holding a glass of champagne. When she saw me, her smile vanished. "Oh my God," she groaned. "She's back. Ethan, get rid of her." Ethan marched towards me, his face red. "Mom, seriously. You bring a stranger to our wedding? You need to leave. Now." "I'm not leaving, Ethan," I said, my voice projecting to the back of the room. "And this is not a stranger. This is Carlos Mendez, my attorney, and the man who manages the Hughes estate." "Estate?" Ethan scoffed. "Mom, you don't have an estate. You have a checking account with $12 in it." Carlos stepped forward. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. He placed the heavy briefcase on the cake table with a thud that echoed in the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carlos began, "if I could have your attention." The room went silent. "My client, Mrs. Aurora Hughes, has instructed me to make a few announcements regarding the financing of tonight's events and the living arrangements of the bride and groom." Juliet stormed over. "Who do you think you are? Security." "I wouldn't do that." The venue manager stepped out from the shadows. He looked pale. He had already spoken to Carlos on the phone. "Mr. Mendez has the floor." Carlos opened the first folder. "Item 1, he read. "The luxury apartment at 42 Skyline Drive. The lease is currently in the name of Ethan Hughes, but the monthly rent of $4,000 is subsidized by the Hughes Trust. Ethan pays $500. The trust pays the rest." Gasps ripple through the room. Ethan looked confused. "What? No, I got a special deal." "There was no deal, Ethan," I said softly. "I paid it. Every month. For 2 years. That's $84,000 I gave you." "As of tonight," Carlos continued, "the subsidy is canceled. The landlord has been notified. The rent is now full price, effective immediately. Furthermore, since the lease was guaranteed by Mrs. Hughes, that guarantee is withdrawn. You have received an eviction notice effective in 30 days if new financing is not secured." Juliet looked at Ethan. "You told me you negotiated that price. You told me you were a savvy negotiator." Ethan ignored her, staring at me. "Mom, you have that kind of money?" "Item 2, Carlos interrupted. "The BMW and the Porsche. Both leases were co-signed by Mrs. Hughes. That co-signing is withdrawn due to assault and hostile behavior." "You can't do that," Juliet shrieked. "I need my car." "The bank disagrees," Carlos said calmly. "Repossession orders have been filed. Do not park in your driveway tonight." And finally, Carlos pulled out the longest receipt. The Royal Oaks Ballroom, $53,000. This invoice was billed to Mrs. Aurora Hughes. However, due to the physical assault perpetrated by the bride against the financier. Carlos looked at Juliet's hand, then at my cheek. "Mrs. Hughes has exercised her right to cancel the payment. The check has been stopped." The venue manager stepped forward again. "Mr. Hughes, Mrs. Hughes," he said to the IC's couple, "I need a valid credit card for $53,000 right now, or the police will be called for theft of services." "50,000?" Ethan stammered. My card has a 5,000 limit." "I know," I said. "I paid that off yesterday too, but I canceled that transfer an hour ago." Juliet began to hyperventilate. She grabbed Ethan's lapels. "Fix this. You said your mother was a nobody. You said she was just a pathetic old woman we could push around." I thought she was," Ethan yelled back. I stepped closer to them. The guests were standing now, phones out, recording everything. "I was never a nobody, Juliet," I said. "I own the building you live in. I own the shop where I work. I own the land this hotel sits on. I pretended to be poor because I wanted to see if you loved me or if you loved what I could give you." I looked at my son. Tears were finally streaming down his face. "Mom," he choked out. "Please, I didn't know. We're having a baby. Juliet is pregnant." The room gasped. I felt a kick in my stomach. A grandchild. "I know," I said. "Juliet told me. She used it as leverage to try and kick me out of my home." I looked at Juliet. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. She was looking at me with new eyes. Greedy eyes. "Oh, Aurora," Juliet said, her voice suddenly sweet, sickeningly fake. "I'm so sorry. It was just hormones, the pregnancy. It makes me crazy. Of course we love you. We can start over, right? For the baby?" She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back. "No," I said. The word hung there, heavy and final. "I will set up a trust for the child," I told them. "Carlos will manage it. Tuition, medical, everything. But the child gets it when they turn 21. You two, you get nothing. Not a penny. Not a key. Not a signature." "Mom!" Ethan fell to his knees. It was pathetic. "You can't leave us with nothing. We'll be homeless." "You're young," I said. "You're healthy. You have hands. Work." I turned to the guests. "I apologize for ruining the party, but I think the bride and groom have some packing to do." "Let's go, Carlos," I said. We walked out. This time there was no silence. There was chaos. The venue manager was shouting. Juliet was screaming at Ethan. Ethan was sobbing on the floor. But I didn't look back. The aftermath was swift. By Monday, the eviction notice was official. They had to move into Juliet's parents' basement, a cramped 2-bedroom house that smelled of smoke. By Wednesday, the cars were repossessed. Ethan had to take the bus to work. He was late 3 times and lost his job because he couldn't focus. By Friday, Juliet filed for annulment. Turns out she didn't want to be married to a broke man living in a basement. She moved out, leaving Ethan alone with his debts. Ethan came to my door a week later. It was raining. He stood outside the apartment building, my building, soaking wet. "Mom," he buzzed the intercom. "Please, I have nowhere to go. Juliet left me. I'm sorry. I was weak." I watched him on the security camera. My heart ached. Every instinct in my body wanted to buzz him in, make him soup, and fix it. That's what mothers do. We fix things. But I remembered the slap. I remembered the silence. "You weren't weak, Ethan," I spoke into the intercom. "You were cruel, and cruelty has a price." "Mom, please," he begged. "I love you, Ethan," I said, tears finally falling down my cheeks in the safety of my living room. "I love you enough to let you grow up. Figure it out." I hung up the phone. 2 years have passed since that night. I still live in my apartment. I redecorated. I bought a new armchair, a bright yellow one that Robert would have hated, but I love it. I opened a foundation for elderly victims of financial abuse. We help seniors protect their assets from greedy relatives. It's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. Ethan is doing okay. He works at a hardware store now. He rents a small studio apartment on the other side of town. He pays his own rent. He takes the bus. We meet for coffee once a month. He pays for his own coffee. Last week, he showed me a picture of my grandson, Oliver. Juliet keeps the baby, but Ethan sees him on weekends. "I'm saving up," Ethan told me, showing me his bank app. "I have $500 saved for Oliver's birthday." I smiled. It was the first time I had seen pride in his eyes. Real pride. Not the arrogance of given wealth, but the quiet dignity of earned money. "That's wonderful, Ethan," I said. I didn't offer to match it. I didn't offer to double it. I just sipped my coffee. He is finally becoming the man Robert and I wanted him to be. It took a slap, a scandal, and a bankruptcy to get him there. Sometimes the hardest part of love isn't giving everything. It's taking everything away so they can find themselves. My name is Aurora Hughes. I am a mother. I am a millionaire. And I finally have my respect back. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, do you think I was too harsh on Ethan, or did he deserve the tough love? I read every comment. See you in the next story.